click the record button. All right. So first question. How long have you been an educator?
I guess like a school educator. This is my first year, so 1 year. But I worked as a museum educator for about a year and a half prior to starting grad school and student teaching. So I guess in some capacity for like almost 3 years. But,
Okay. And then how long did it take for you to actually become a teacher? Like
um,
the process of doing that?
like the process, I got it was about a year, maybe a little less, like because I started my master credential program in August of 2017, and I had my credential and like graduated from that section of the program in June 2018. Yeah.
And
No.
what's your favorite part of being a teacher?
My favorite part, um I started teaching or like considering teaching because I really liked history. But definitely like the reason that I now like really love teaching is like the students, and that like I always knew I wanted some kind of job that was going to be about like people centric. Um, so I think I like the most rewarding moments are those times when like you have a kid that's been struggling or anything like that, and they like finally get it, or like turn in a really good paragraph, or like make a really good point in class. And so it's that kind of stuff, being able to watch kids grow and learn and like build on what we've been studying.
And then have there ever been times where you've doubted your ability as a teacher?
As a first year teacher, about once a week, occasionally once a day. Um, so yeah, there have definitely been times, not so much when I like questioned if I enjoyed it, but there have definitely been moments where I'm just like, I don't know what to do for this student, or I don't know how to handle the situation. And that's probably like that, how to handle different situations is something that like as I get further into my career, I'm hoping I get better at. But yeah, there are definitely times like with certain kids where it's like no matter what I try, like they still like either won't participate or just don't seem to get it. And I just feel like I'm just like hitting a brick wall constantly. So it's those moments where I'm like, dang, am I any good at this? Um, but yeah, I think that's just part of it.
Yeah.
So
But then on the flip side of that, are there any moments where you really feel like you've excelled as a teacher?
um yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think you need those moments. Um and you gotta take like the small victories. That was like a quick thing I learned in student teaching from one of my resident teachers, because I student taught in an 8th grade classroom. And yeah, he kind of told me, he's like, you've got to take the little things. He's like, when the kid that doesn't turn anything in turns in a half-done worksheet, or like raises their hand and answers a question or something like that, or you have a day with a really good discussion in class, like those kind of moments, yeah, there have definitely been, definitely those. So yeah, and you need that to keep going. Otherwise, I don't think anyone could do the job.
And then what grade levels and subjects do you teach?
I am currently teaching 10th grade world history and 12th grade econ. I student taught in an 8th grade US history class. And then I actually just got my teaching line for next year today. Next year I'm teaching econ and world history again. So
Okay.
12th grade.
And then what roles and responsibilities do you have in your learning community, like your district or school?
So because I'm a first year teacher, they don't push you to do like a ton of different stuff. But I am a club advisor. I advise for the Escape for Change Club, which is a charity organization. We're like the Fairfield chapter of this like larger, I think it's like international club, and they the kids do like clothing and canned food drives, and then we once a month walk around and like distribute the supplies to the local homeless community, which is awesome. The kids are really cool. It's actually probably the easiest club to advise because they're super self-motivated and very organized. But that's been really fun. I will occasionally like chaperone dances or like sporting events, stuff like that, which I
Yeah.
really like because it's always fun to see the kids outside of class, like how they actually are
Yeah.
with their friends and stuff. But yeah, so next year I'll probably advise a club again, but I'm not necessarily on any like curriculum development teams or anything like that because they
Yeah.
don't really encourage you to do that your first
Makes
year.
sense.
So
And then what methods have you found that best engages students?
so I, for part of my MA, did this program where Davis partners with the Globe Theatre in London. So I got to go do like a professional development workshop there for a week, and then as part of my master's, I had to use these like theater-based techniques in the classroom and like track students' progress with it. And those were almost always some of my best, most engaged lessons. So those, anything that can get the kids like up and moving, they seem to really like to an extent, which was always tricky because I had like 35 like teenagers in a small room, but I can get them up and moving. And then things that are more like open-ended when there's not necessarily like one right or wrong question or answer, I think is really good because then I feel a little like more comfortable to share and potentially like make mistakes. So those like Globe Theater activities are really great because they build a sense of community in the class. There's like bonding that goes on, and then also really pushes them almost without them realizing it to do like deeper analysis and yeah.
That makes sense. And then what are some like core class procedures slash norms slash like support systems do you have that make a positive like environment within your classroom?
Hmm. So I I pretty much started the year with like um, 3 class rules, and I was like, work hard, be prepared, and then respect each other. And I told them, and they all kind of laughed because I was like, I taught preschool for a year, like in a museum. Like it's gonna sound super preschool, but like the golden rule. And I was like, that's kind of the end all be all. Like if you have nothing nice to say, like treat others how you want to be treated. Because I was like, who here disagrees with that? And like, no one did. So just to kind of start there with, we can't have like deep or meaningful or even like kind of hot topic discussions in class that I know they're all interested in and kind of want to do until we have that like base ground rule of respect. So in terms of like classroom management, that is probably like pretty foundational. I'm trying to think what other stuff. I spend a good portion of like the first week or so of the school year just doing community building stuff. So all the little like icebreaker kind of things or just different activities like that. And it definitely did pay off. Like it's worth doing to put in that work at the beginning. And it may seem like, oh, like we're wasting time, like school started. Like, no, it's worth it to take the week and try to get to know each kid individually. And then I guess the last big thing is like second, third, fourth chances kind of thing. Like, especially with I have sophomores, so like they're not quite freshmen. They're like they've been there for a little bit, but they don't necessarily like have it together, have it all figured out in the way a lot of my seniors do. So like late work policy, test retakes, like letting them come back and like knowing that they have a second, third, fourth chance, whatever they need, as long as they're like trying. So, and I think a lot of kids like kind of have realized that about my class. And really, if you, depending on how you, like, if you do it right and just be like, I'm here to make sure you help, like, you can help yourself essentially. Kids don't really abuse it. The kids that want to like fix their grade and come in and get better will do it and they'll take advantage of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you have any methods to either limit or stop bullying within your classroom?
Um, I guess that like early community building, like just that not only that you get to know those kids, but that those kids get to know each other. And especially because I work at a big school, there's over 2,000 kids at Armio. So a lot of students come into my classroom and they don't know half the kids in that class because they're not a part of their smaller group. Um, so taking that time and also just constantly like reinforcing like with how you as the teacher interact with kids. Like if I don't interrupt, I give them time to speak. I don't like poke fun or anything like that at students. You kind of set a precedent. So and then the first couple times anything like that happens, like you just have to say something right away and like make it known. And kids don't necessarily like, they don't want to get called out. They don't want to be that one kid that's a jerk in class and gets that reputation. So if you set up that precedent and that norm that it's not accepted, yeah.
Okay. And then, so now we're moving into the lesson plan part.
Oh.
So how much time would you say you spend making a lesson plan?
I think it kind of depends, honestly, on the lesson. If it's a one-day thing and I know what I want to be, what I want the lesson to be, that's easy. Because some days you're like, okay, we just talked about like causes of World War II. Like obviously tomorrow, the next day or so has to be like the actual start of the war, and like so you know what you want to teach about. So that maybe an hour or so. But again, it depends. If it's something where I'm using primary sources, that can take a long time because you have to hunt down those right primary sources that are at the right reading level, and then make the right like worksheets and scaffolds and stuff for that. But if it's going to be a more like group-led work, something we're kind of all doing together, that doesn't require as much like making new things for it, then yeah, maybe an hour, a little less. So
Okay. And then how would you say you choose your subject matter for the lesson plan? Like, is it usually based off standards, or do you just use that as a loose guide, or what do you do?
Well, for my econ classes, I pretty much like, not that I go like step by step with the standards, but those are definitely like kind of a core like framework because econ is more life skill heavy. So I want to make sure I give them all that information because they're young adults and I'm like, you should know what taxes are and like what the federal government does. But for World Civ, there's really just so much content that you kind of have to pick and choose to an extent what you can actually logistically get through. If I wanted to hit every single standard in the 10th grade curriculum, I'd spend like so little time on stuff. We wouldn't have time to do like skills development in terms of like writing and analysis and all that. It would just be trying to get through content. So I use it as I guess like a loose guideline, but also I really try to focus on being like culturally responsive in what I teach. Like our like Armio where I'm at now is probably 70+% students of color. The majority of kids that walk into my classroom are Latinx or Black. So I try to make sure that what we're studying reflects them and just reflects the real world that we live in. And unfortunately, the set standards for world history are very Eurocentric. So I do try to break away from that when I can. Actually, that's my my goal for next year is I might just be like, screw it, and like try to just burn down the world history curriculum and spend way more time outside of Europe because I think that's, I don't know, more reflective and just as valuable. So, a guideline. There are important things,
Out of
but
my personal curiosity, are you talking about like going to Asia instead of Europe, or going to like Africa or Latin America?
I'm not sure. I just because I was kind of waiting to plan too much until I got my teaching line, and then now I only have one period of US or of world history next year and 4 of econ, and I've already taught econ twice now. So I'm like, I don't really have to do that much curriculum planning. So I thought I'm thinking maybe to go thematically, um, maybe to still go like chronologically, but just like choose different events to focus on. Like right now, the curriculum spends a lot of time on like the French Revolution and European and like the Industrial Revolution, that kind of stuff. So less time on that, maybe spend more time on like pre-imperial, like Africa and Asia, and then more time on imperialism, things like that.
Okay.
But,
And how early would you say you start developing your like year-long plan of what you want to do for a class?
um, well, I had a very loose, like I guess unit map or like year long plan at the start of this past year. This year I will be better about it because
Mhm.
last year I was the first couple weeks of your first year teaching, or you're kind of just not, you're trying not to drown essentially,
Uh-huh.
figure out what you're doing. Um, but I'm thinking this summer, probably like late July, early August, I'll start thinking about it more heavily. I'll probably revisit some of my econ curriculum because I want to. Now that I've done that twice, I'm I'm way more comfortable with the content. So I really want to push myself in terms of what I'm doing with the content. Because econ is not my like sweet spot. I'm now teaching 4 periods of it, but it's not really. If you gave me my like dream lineup of what I'm most comfortable teaching, econ is not on there. So I spent this year essentially like learning it. First semester, I was like 24 hours ahead of the kids in terms of content. I was like teaching myself economics in my room. Um, but so I'll probably start really planning a couple weeks out. But they also can change your teaching line. Like like this past year, I thought I was teaching US history until 48 hours before school started.
Oh
And
wow.
then they got rid of all my US and gave me and gave me economics instead. So you can plan all you want, and then
Yeah.
sometimes they change it on you.
Okay. And then do you have a routine for creating lesson plans?
Um, hmm. I don't know that I have like a set routine. I personally I really enjoy lesson planning. Like I have a lot of fun with it. I think that's probably one of my strong suits as a teacher is like curriculum development.
Mm.
So I don't know if I necessarily have like one set routine. I try to know at least what I want, like the general idea of my lesson for the next day before I leave school. So I can go home and like make it. Um, I also am like very collaborative. Like even if I think I like totally know what I want to do, I'm gonna find someone else and talk to them about it.
Mhm.
Just to be like, this doesn't sound crazy, does it? Like I really like to work with other teachers, so pretty much every day I will find one of my like 2 or 3 good friends in my department and just briefly talk with them about my plan for the next day. So
Okay. And then what kind of strategies do you have to like foster connection between families with learning with their students and you?
so that that has definitely that's probably something I would like to work on more next year. The school I'm at currently doesn't have a very high parent involvement just overall.
Mhm.
So I do at the parent teacher night at the beginning, like all the parents have access to my email. I encourage them to reach out if they need anything. I don't have like any teacher social media. Um, I know that's getting like more and more popular.
Mhm.
I think about it sometimes. Maybe I'll do it because I think that is a really good way to like have parents be more kind of involved or connected to what your kids are learning. But I also think, especially with high school, it's important to have a balance. Like I tell all my students in the first day, it's like in my syllabus and stuff, that if you have an issue with me or with their grading or anything like that, I want to hear from you first, not from your parent.
Okay.
That I think it's an important skill to like advocate for yourself. So I push them to do that. But I think I don't know, maybe some kind of like monthly update on what we're doing could be good. But I have a Google Classroom, and if parents want to be added to it, they can. Um, but most parents don't want to be. So yeah.
How often would you say you collaborate with your colleagues about like subject matter or just getting through the day or things like that?
Honestly, almost every day. I probably bug, really. Like they're probably like, oh God, Grace is coming to talk to me again. But because I carpool with a good friend of mine in my department, and almost every morning we talk about what we're doing. On the way back, we talk about what is our plan for the next day. Um, one of one of my just like best friends in Davis, the last semester, started working as a long-term sub for a woman in my department who went on maternity leave, and we would meet constantly because we taught the same subjects. So that like I don't know if I'm very lucky in that I have a really collaborative department, but yeah, probably pretty much every day I talk to someone at least briefly about what our plans are, even if we don't teach the same subject.
Okay. And then how would you promote collaboration between your students?
Between my students. So we probably do some kind of group work once a week, if not twice a week in my class. And I have like, which is kind of nice, like individual desks. So I like about half the time, maybe a little less, they sit in rows, and then the other half they're in table groups, and they're at the same table group every day if we're in groups. And I also do on lecture days or when we're doing like notes and discussion and stuff. I call them like turn and talks. So I try to do it every 2 or 3 slides, essentially every big idea in the notes. I'll have I don't know, like kind of big idea question that is like based on the content we talked about, but trying to get them to like think about some of the larger themes. And they have like a minute or two to write their answer in their notes. So they have to show that they like wrote something, and then they have to turn and talk to their partner next to them. And then I like pull popsicle sticks or take volunteers for people to share. So I'm having them turn and talk. It's like, okay, even if you didn't have an idea, maybe your neighbor has an idea, and you don't even have to share yours. You can share what they said. But those little like one-on-one discussions, I try to do every day. I do it for my warm-up as well.
Okay. And then how much time or how do you optimize your time spent in the classroom?
So having like clear routines is definitely crucial, like especially in that first week or two, establishing so that like in my class, every day you come in and on Google Classroom, there's a warm-up, and I have the warm-up up on the screen. They have to we have Chromebooks. Sometimes they do it on their phone if they don't have their Chromebook, but I try to discourage that. And they know they have to answer the warm-up question. And after a minute or so after the last bell rings, I'll read the question aloud, and then I give them 5 or so more minutes to work on the warm-up before then they have to turn and talk and then share. So that kind of gets them going right away. So it's not like they have to like get a worksheet or anything big. The warm-up question is usually like something based on what we did the day before to kind of refresh their memory. But yeah, those routines like that are definitely important.
Okay. And then how / why do you provide like feedback back and forth between you and a student just in the everyday classroom?
So in terms of everyday feedback, probably it's mostly verbal, like one-on-one discussions or small group stuff if they're working in groups. But I also try to give regular like written feedback on larger assignments that they like anytime they turn in writing. I always have to like warn them because I'm like, if there's a lot of writing that's on your paper when you get it back, doesn't mean you failed. It just means I'm giving you a lot of feedback. Even
Mm.
it could even be good feedback. So I try to um, hand back work with feedback like once a week, but day to day is probably more like verbal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what would you say excites you most about being an educator?
Um, I guess I because like I love history and I love sharing it with people. That's what I'm most excited to do. Because I'd always liked it in high school, but it wasn't until I went to college and I took like women's history classes that I was like, oh, this is relevant to me. These are like women like my mom, like my grandmother, and like myself that have like gone through these struggles. You like make these connections and you see yourself reflected in history, and it's very like personally empowering and validating. And if I can provide that for students to see themselves reflected in history, to feel like they have a place, their experiences and their culture is reflected in what they're learning in the classroom, that is like all I can ask for. So.
Okay. And then going off that, what is one thing that you love to teach?
Ooh, what do I love to teach? Unfortunately, I'm not teaching U.S. history right now, but I do love to teach like Civil War and Reconstruction. I did that in 8th grade, and that was probably some of my best teaching. Was that, and then for U.S. I really enjoy imperialism because I think that um, it allows you to get into a lot of the harder subjects that kids want to talk about, like racism and things that's when like the world history curriculum starts to feel really relevant because you see a lot of things that still have ramifications today. So that's always really fun to teach.
Okay, cool. That was all my questions.
Cool.
I'm going to turn off the recording now.
All right.